The Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court presents the opening of the law year 2024. Join us for the live edition of Meet the Speakers, where you come face to face with the speakers from the member states and territories of the OECS, featured in the opening of the law year 2024. The Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court presents the opening of the law year 2024 and Grenada. Join us for the live edition of Meet the Speakers, where you come face to face with the speakers from the member states and territories of the OECS, featured in the opening of the Magistrate Veronica and Barbuda. Ms. Sajilla McDowell, representative of the Directors of Public Prosecutions and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Mr. Thomas Astaphan, King's Counsel, representative of the Territory of Anguilla. Ms. Jean Dyer, President of the OECS Bar Association. Mrs. Diana Thomas Hunt, representative of St. Lucia. Mr. Paul Francis, representative of Grenada. Miss Marcel Watts, representative of the Territory of Montserrat. Mr. Peter Farrer, representative of the British Virgin Islands. And Mr. Lennox Lawrence, representative of the Commonwealth of Dominica. With your host, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court presents the opening of the law year 2024. Join us for the live edition of Meet the Speakers, where you come face to face with the speakers from the member states and territories of the OECS, featured in the opening of the law year 2024. Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, representative of the Attorneys General and Grenada. Senator the Honorable Garth Wilkin, representative of Ministers of Justice and Legal Affairs and St. Kitts and Nevis. Magistrate Veronica Thomas, and representative of Antigua and Barbuda. Ms. Sajilla McDowell, representative of the Directors of Public Prosecutions and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Mr. Thomas Astaphan, King's Counsel, representative of the Territory of Anguilla. Miss Jean Dyer, President of the OECS Bar Association. Mrs. Diana Thomas Hunt, representative of St. Lucia. Mr. Paul Francis, representative of Grenada. Miss Marcel Watts, representative of the Territory of Montserrat. Mr. Peter Farrer, representative of the British Virgin Islands. And Mr. Lennox Lawrence, representative of the Commonwealth of Dominica. With your host, Michelle John Thibbles, Chief Registrar. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our second and final edition of Meet the Speakers Live. And this is done in anticipation of the opening of the law year 2024, the highlight on the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court's calendar. And with us today, we have two of our esteemed speakers. I will introduce them briefly by name and give them a chance to introduce themselves to you. We have with us Senator the Honorable Garth Wilkin, who is the Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs for the state of St. Kitts and Nevis. And also with us from the Virgin Islands, we have Mr. Peter Farrer. Good afternoon, gentlemen, and welcome to our program today.
Good afternoon, Chief Registrar.
Good afternoon. Mr. Wilkin, please, could you let our speakers know a little bit more about this young Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs hailing from the twin island of St. Kitts and Nevis.
I'm only young because I'm shaving, Madam Chief Registrar.
Well, thanks for the secret. Unfortunately, I can't use it.
There are many other tricks you can use. I will tell you when we get to Grenada.
Off air, all right.
Off air, yes. I'm a proud Caribbean national, born in St. Kitts, and I grew up in Antigua, Barbados, and then St. Kitts. I was a civil engineer in my first collegiate life. Then I became a lawyer, and I'm called to the bars of St. Kitts and Nevis, Montserrat, Antigua and Barbuda, and Anguilla before I took office as Attorney General and Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs a mere 17 months ago. So I'm happy to be here, Madam Chief Registrar.
And we're very happy to have you. Thank you so much. Just to stray for a little bit with your introduction. My husband is a civil engineer, and we were speaking just last week about the number of persons we know who were formerly civil engineers and then shifted to law. Make such a jump, because I don't think there is much. I don't think they're similar.
There's only one connection. There's only one connection. That is the contract aspect of projects, which is one of the reasons why I became a lawyer, because I enjoyed that course. But I can think of two. Anthony
Financial.
Anthony. No. I'm talking about civil engineers turned lawyers. Anthony Ross, King's Counsel.
Yes.
From St. Kitts as well.
We mentioned him as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the Chief Justice of Trinidad was also a civil engineer before practicing law.
I did not know, and he's another one to add to our list.
Yes.
Oh, that's really fascinating. So which do you prefer in the two? I
found my passion. Let's just say that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that introduction. Mr. Farah, good afternoon. How's the BVI this afternoon?
Good afternoon. I wish I was in the BVI. I'm currently in the UK suffering with a cold because it's freezing over here at the moment. I wish I was back in the BVI. I'm very much looking forward to the Caribbean. So my background is also slightly sort of circuitous route to come to the law. So I left school at 16 to become a tree surgeon's apprentice. And so at 16, I sort of wanted to earn some money, and I was on £25 a day, which in those days was quite a lot of money. And then a log came down there was no safety equipment, and a log came down and almost hit me on the back of the head. And I thought, maybe I shouldn't be a tree surgeon's apprentice. This is going to be a very dangerous job. And so I went back to school, and then via circuitous route became a lawyer. So I think it's very important, I think, to have a sort of a different perspective on life. It's sometimes very useful to have a different professional path beforehand.
Well, that is very true and very interesting. Both of my guests this afternoon, the audience would agree, very, very interesting. I don't have quite an interesting background, if I could add. I mean, as a child, I wanted to be a teacher, then an astronaut, then a doctor, and probably so many other things, maybe a singer. But I suppose law, as AG said, I found my passion somewhere in law, and I have been at it. So thank you so much for that brief introduction. So the opening of the Lawyer 2024 brings us together here. And for our listening audience, for anyone who may be joining us, these are two of our esteemed speakers for our event on Friday, the 12th of January, 2024. And this year, the opening of the Lawyer will be hosted in the Spice Isle of Grenada. Are you gentlemen looking forward to it? Mr. Farah, I know you're looking forward to it.
I'm definitely looking forward to it. Right, yes.
And AG, I know you didn't mention living in Grenada. That's probably one of the few islands that you seem to have not lived in.
Actually, Grenada was the only OECS territory that I hadn't been to until last year. So it will only be the second time that I'm visiting Grenada. I have lots of friends there, but I just never had the opportunity other than to land and take off. And I
Yes,
visited there last I was there for a meeting, I believe it was last February. What a beautiful country. I was very
it
happy got to
is.
explore it.
It is, and I'm so happy that you decided to join us as well. So, our activities in Grenada for our listeners, it starts with a church service. And I think in most of the other islands where you actually have events occurring, there is at least a church service that will start. And we will talk about what's going on in St. Kitts and Nevis and BVI in a bit. But just to highlight, in Grenada, there will be a church service at the Blessed Sacrament Catholic Church, and that will commence at 8 a.m. And this will be followed by the usual procession that we have with the band, the police band, and we will all process to the Crown Ballroom, the Radisson Grenada Beach Resort. And for those of you who may be wondering, Chief Justice, her ladyship, has deemed it a court for the purpose of this special sitting because of the nature of the sitting, and we're expecting so many people. So that our regular courtroom would not be able to hold. So that's what's happening in Grenada. And of course, AG and Mr. Ferrer, you will be joining us. Could you tell us what's going on in St. Kitts and Nevis, please, AG?
Yes, well, I'm informed by the registrar that we will continue how we normally do it at the opening. We'll have our church service in the morning, and then the lawyers in their robes in 90-degree heat will march across Bastille, a little longer journey to our new temporary court location along our coast, our coastal road in Bastille. And then they will have the inspection of the guard by Justice Thompson as well as Justice Morley. And then we'll proceed to tune in to the special sitting. And then after special sitting, they will any remarks that any of the lawyers locally wish to make, they will make. And then they'll have light refreshments after that. So it's that is the standard procedure that we have for the opening of court. I was fortunate to be there last year to walk in robed through Bastille. But surprisingly, there are lots of people who come out of their offices for the opening of court to see the lawyers march. And typically, I would say we have around 30 to 50, lawyers that march. So it's something to see. It's only once a year. And the persons in Bastille, those who are not looking out the office windows, actually come onto the side of the road. And we are taking a unique route this year because of the temporary location of our court. So there might be even more people who hadn't seen it before on the western side of Bastille that might come out and observe this special occasion.
Oh, that's actually wonderful. And I've said this so many times before on different platforms. One of my fondest memories as a child is in my infant school, which was located somewhat in the center of the capital of Castries, the town. And then when the opening of the Loyer would happen, of course, as a child, I didn't know that's what it was at the time. All I knew is that our teachers would call us onto the balcony of our school, and we would come and we would watch the judges and the lawyers in their robes and their babes. We'd watch them march down, and the police band would be playing, and it was such a spectacle. There's some things that I don't remember as a child, but this was a vivid memory, not knowing, of course, that years later I would be part of similar procession. So I understand what you say when you say that persons look forward to seeing this. It is really somewhat of a spectacle.
And
Thanks
Madam
for
Chief Registrar,
sharing.
sorry, one
Sure.
other thing. I forgot to give you compliments for coming on the radio, 2 different radio stations today in St. Kitts and Nevis to let the people know about the opening of the court. So thank you for that. I heard they were quite interesting presentations. So that is also part of our festivities leading up to the opening.
Yes, thank you so much, because it's really important that persons are made aware. The court is something that persons really, unfortunately, just associate with maybe just not so good things or not so pleasant occurrences, because of the experience of having to go to court for their matters. But there's so much more, to the court. And the reason for really trying to promote the opening of the lawyer is to really get persons to invest in this court and realize, get some sense of pride. This is our court. Just like St. Kitts and Nevis is your home, St. Lucia mine. We have this joint where we can all come together and say, this is our court, our regional court. It belongs to us. So I think persons should have that sort of pride in this institution and want to know everything they can about it and share in all of our accomplishments as well. Mr. Ferrer,
do you know,
I know you in the BVI. Can you share with us what's going on?
When I was listening to Garth, I mean, it's exactly the same process, and I just thought how amazing it is as a demonstration of unity throughout the member states. That at the same time, 8 o'clock in the morning, people will go to their place of worship. There'll be the ceremony, and then there'll be this procession of lawyers. And I remember when I first, because it used to be in September, the opening of the court. Until the hurricane, obviously until Hurricane Irma and Maria, changed that slightly. But I remember arriving in 2016, and I hadn't been called yet, but there was the opening of the court year, and so I went along to follow the procession. So I wasn't robed, I wasn't part of the the gathering, but I found it a very moving sort of demonstration of this is your court, this is the people's court, this is the way you have access to justice, these are your lawyers who are there to act for you on your behalf, and it's a great public demonstration, I think, of that sort of unity throughout the Caribbean, throughout the member states of the ECS.
Yes, it's quite true. And BVI is doing it this year as well with a church service at the Apostolic Faith Church in Road Town, and that's at 8 a.m. as well. There won't be a procession, I'm told, by the registrar, but then after that, there will be the special sitting. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It starts at 10 o'clock, and persons are asked to be seated by 9:45, and that's in the Stackle building on the 4th floor, the civil courtroom. Yes. And similarly, throughout the OECS, as I mentioned, we have church services. In Antigua, that's the only difference. Antigua's church service will be on Thursday, the 11th of January at 9 a.m. So they get started just a little bit earlier than we do. But, the opening of the lawyer is quite a big deal for not just us at the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, but all members of the legal fraternity. And we really want the citizens of the OECS to buy into the magnanimous nature of this event. And the theme for this year is innovation and justice reform. The ECSC looking to the future. Without giving away too much, because we know that you are preparing or have prepared your addresses for Friday, could you just share with us what this theme really means to you and your member state and territory? Mr. Ferrer, your mic is open. Maybe you can start.
So I think this year particularly, we've had a lot of structural changes in terms of the civil procedural rules. And certainly a lot of the people who are users of the court system in BVI are international parties. They come from all around the world. You'll often have BVI companies involved in structures, from South America to Russia to China, to America to Europe, and having a way in which you can access the court system for those parties, I think, is very important. So the changes in terms of the way in which you can self-certify if you want to serve out of the jurisdiction, I think has been very important. And also the change the change from the impracticability test to one of good reason. So you can serve out now if you have, for alternative service, if you have good reason to serve out. So it's a slight lowering of threshold, which has made, I think, from the BVI court's perspective, a lot easier in terms of obtaining for those parties who wish to sue parties to bring them within the remit of the BVI, I think has been a very important step.
Wonderful. AG?
Yes, the modern technologies, bringing the court into the modern times is very important. For example, this year, with the movement of the Magistrates Court civil realm into the e-litigation portal, that has made a big difference, just like it did when we moved just before COVID. I'm speaking for St. Kitts and Nevis, into the e-portal. The timing was impeccable. We moved in September 2019, and that helped us to not delay justice in our territory because we were utilizing this new system. Also the facilitation of hearings virtually, I'm sure in the BVI context that also helps. I'll give you a story. I was appearing in the Court of Appeal, I believe it was July 2021, and there was a then Queen's Counsel who was appearing and in his attic in the UK in a matter. It was actually not my matter, it was another matter, but I stayed on after my matter was completed, and fully robed, but he made the mistake of getting up, and let's just say he did not have on long pants. But I said to myself that, imagine that during that time, that troubling, inconvenient time that was COVID,
Yes.
someone could participate fully in the legal process from their attic, and that was a lesson that I brought from that experience. So it's good to see that the court is innovating. It's good to see that the court is moving with the time. The Chief Justice must get a lot of credit for the achievements in the last few years. Simple things like efficiency, timeliness. I am a big proponent for continuing the virtual hearings, not necessarily trials, but even sometimes Court of Appeal sittings, because we can also save resources, not having 5 Court of Appeal judges travel for every sitting in a particular jurisdiction every time. There could be maybe 1 in person, 1 in virtual a year, because we typically have 2 per year, sometimes 3. So I'm all for that, protecting the public purse. Efficiency, timeliness, also access to justice. The fact that you can tune in to a Zoom hearing of the Court of Appeal from your office, if there's an interesting matter, is also quite helpful. It helps for there to be transparency and accountability in the process. Because you want the buy-in. It is our court. You want the buy-in from the general public. You want them to see what is going on. My grandmother used to tell me that people used to come into Bastille and sit in the library of the court in the 60s and 70s in particular. And I think yes, in the 60s and 70s before our court burned down in the early 80s, and observe. They used to watch lawyers in their element. Some of those persons became lawyers because of that experience. So there was an acceptance in the society as to what the court process was, and people actually went in their spare time after work to observe court hearings. And I think the virtual modernization of our court helps to spread it a lot more, and that's always a good thing to have the public buy-in, so that they can know what our processes are. It demystifies the court for them. They can see it's human beings making arguments just like it was centuries ago, trying to convince an arbiter to rule in your favor. And that's always a good thing. When my children get bigger, I would want to tell them, listen, there's an interesting case that's coming up. Just turn on your tablet and tune in and listen while you're doing other things. So it's great to see the innovations, the awareness that's involved with those innovations, the efficiencies that occur. I mean, I personally loved the e-portal because I was a big proponent of technology, and that really helped me get more organized with my matters. Sometimes I used to scan the list on the e-portal and say, okay, what is due next? Just, I felt it was a deal breaker change, a big time change in the way we practice. I kind of miss it, actually. I haven't seen the e-portal in 17 months. I try to encourage persons in the office to move to more technological file creation systems like Microsoft Teams and so forth. I think the court led the way in that movement. So I'm very pleased with what has happened, and I'm excited for what is to come.
And I wouldn't.
So well said. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Farrer.
I wouldn't underestimate how impressed the rest of the world has been as well with the ELP. I mean, I'm talking to lawyers in Hong Kong, in New York, in the UK, and they sort of really rate the system as being world class. And it did enable us, as you say, during COVID, to just continue on without even breaking a step. Whereas there were backlogs in other jurisdictions, it enabled the court to really manage its court list extremely efficiently, and I think that's something which the system ought to be very, very proud of.
And thank you so much for that. And even at our Court of Appeal level, it has really revolutionized the way we do business. As you would know, the Court of Appeal is an itinerant court, so every other week, the court would sit in a different member state and territory and have to lug all these boxes of paper files from one island to the next, back to the island. And this went on for years. And then COVID came, and we had to find a way to stay current and find a way to ensure that we could still sit. And then there was the regional airlift situation, which made travel virtually impossible in so many circumstances. So the e-litigation portal, coupled with Zoom, I must say, really allowed the court to continue sitting. The Court of Appeal only missed one sitting, and it was really for nothing much to do with anything, if I could say anything file related. And we only missed that one sitting, and we had that Easter break, I believe it was, and our Chief Justice came to us, and her ladyship said, we have to find a way for the court to continue to sit, put our heads together. What can we do? And the team at headquarters, we're always up for the challenge because we feed off her ladyship's energy. And her ladyship is very technologically savvy and advanced, sometimes more than some of us, and we are very happy to see all what technology has really done for our court to help improve. This is the way the world is going. Every aspect of the world has evolved so much using technology. And if the court didn't do it, then we would get left behind and we would fail in the delivery of our mandate to the citizens of the region. So I'm so happy that the e-litigation portal and other innovations have been successful in St. Kitts and Nevis and the BVI and the other member states and territories. We continue to receive compliments throughout the world about our e-litigation portal system. And I think it can only get better from here. It can only get better. And as new technological advancements come forth, I could see the portal continuing to revolutionize the way in which we do business here. And there have been a number of other reform initiatives done by the court as well, in addition to the digital or the technological aspects of things. I know we're sort of short for time this afternoon, but other than the technological initiatives, are there any other initiatives that either of you gentlemen would just like to point out that have really benefited your member state and territory that you would like to let our listeners know about? AG?
The sentencing guidelines. I've had the chance in recent weeks, because one of our local judges creates a diary for publication in the press as to the results of certain criminal matters, convictions, and so forth. And it's amazing for me to read through the reasoning, considering the guidelines. I think the guidelines have made a significant difference. There's actually more guilty pleas now, because there is clarity as to if persons are to proceed with a trial, what is like the likely sentence, because of these clear guidelines. So I must compliment the court on those, as well as the new CPR. I mean, unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to practice within it, but when I was with the bar, I had an opportunity to review, and we made input before it was finalized. So I'm happy to see a lot of the recommendations were accepted. I particularly, as was mentioned by Peter, I particularly like a few of the changes in relation to service, as well as in relation to judicial review. I mean, we have reduced a significant aspect of judicial review, which will allow us to proceed much more swiftly with those types of matters, which is helpful for our chambers, because we don't have to do it twice. So, you know, because typically, even from the other end, when I had judicial review matters, it almost felt like we were trying the case twice, at the leave stage and then at the ultimate stage. So I'm happy to see some of those reforms, which are moving towards streamlining how the court does its business.
Very true. And as you made mention of the sentencing guidelines, the key purpose was to really provide consistency throughout the member states and territories, because we are one jurisdiction. There's a geographical divide, but we are still one jurisdiction. And we have so many other reform initiatives geared at really bringing us together as a jurisdiction, and for there to be consistency throughout. So thank you for that. Mr. Farrar?
Yeah, really, as I mentioned earlier, it's the CPR changes that are really sort of crucial, I think, for us. There's been lots of sort of in the previous CPR, it was due for a change. It had been sort of 24 years since the last edition, and I think the case law which had come up and had grown up since that time really dictated that certain changes had to be made. And interestingly, sort of things that think we often get enforcement of awards, arbitration awards, and enforcement of foreign judgments, and that's the procedure for how you bring those about and how you bring those before the court has been changed. So I think those are all positive changes that will mean that it's a more efficient use of the court time in terms of how they deal with it.
Yes, certainly. And we just look forward to the future. As AG said, I'm excited about the court's future when I see what we have accomplished over the past few years. And it seems in the entire space of time, a relatively short amount of time, given the lifespan of the court so far, to have accomplished so much. I can only imagine what the court would be able to accomplish in the coming years. And it's sort of bittersweet, but this year, Her Ladyship Dame Janice Perero will be delivering her exit address, and this will be the last time that Her Ladyship will be addressing us as our Chief Justice at the opening of the law year 2024. So that is really something for us to look forward to. Her Ladyship has no doubt served the region exceptionally, and has always been so forward thinking and really at the front or the forefront of the court. The mandate of the court has been the innovation and the justice reform, and how the court could really advance or enhance the administration of justice. So we look forward to that address. Just before we close up, is there anything that you would say, that any other initiative that you would like to see as the ECSC looks to the future?
I would love to see the magistracy be brought into the jurisdiction.
Hair, AG. And so would we at the court's headquarters. You would know that we have been trying to get this initiative off the ground for the last so many years.
Well, I'm going to publicly undertake to be the guinea pig in the process, because I believe that we have such a well-functioning court, and at the end of the day, the majority of our people interact with the magistrates court rather than even the high court. I think it's ample time that we bring the truly one jurisdiction model to the magistracy.
Thank you so much. And AG, we're going to have to hold you to that because this is being broadcast throughout the length and breadth of not just the region, but the world. And to top it off, it's being recorded. So we have you saying it. Thank you so very much for that. Mr. Farah?
I think in terms of the access to justice point, it'd be very useful, I think, to have on the website sort of each jurisdiction with its case law by subject matter. So if you want to find a criminal law case, you can find a criminal law case. If you want to find a commercial case, you can find a commercial case. So to have some sort of order to the search engine, I think would be my sort of tip for the future, because I think, you know, access to justice, that people around the world can just, if they want to find a decision on a commercial law matter or a criminal law matter, they just have to put it into the search term and it comes up as a specific volume or index on those.
Thank you so much, both very, very pertinent observations here. And certainly we are taking note of it, because if you know nothing about this court, you do know that we are open to suggestions, and we're all about improving any single initiative or any single function that we do. We're all about improving it. I am so happy that, gentlemen, that you agreed to join me here this afternoon. And that's about all the time that we have. But as we wrap up, I'll give you an opportunity just to make some closing remarks. I'll start with you, AG.
Yes, as I said, I'm looking forward to where the court is going at the next phase in its modernization. And I'm prepared to support it in any way that we can in terms of the administration of the courts. And I think it's also very important that we re-examine the projects about permanent homes, the Halls of Justice project as well. I'm looking forward to that, because we have our housing issues here in St. Kitts and Nevis, which I'm trying to resolve within the next couple of years. So I look forward to the court putting focus on bringing back that to the fore, because we really should, even when we have a special sit-in like we're going to have in Grenada, we should be able to hold it at the Halls of Justice, not at a resort. So I'm looking forward to that. And what the court is bringing, I think you and your team, the Chief Justice and her team, are doing a great job. And we should be very proud of our court. As Peter said, we are looked at regionally, internationally for some of our best practices. So we're setting the trend, and I'm happy to be part of that process.
Thank you so much, AG. Well said, a wonderful note for us to end on. Mr. Farah, closing remarks for me.
I think Garth has said it far better than I possibly can. Extremely eloquent. So I think, yes, I mean, I'm very happy to be part of the future, hopefully, of this court system, and I think the Chief Justice and her team have been doing an amazing job in terms of organising and driving the process forward. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing my colleagues in Grenada in the next couple of days.
Thank you so very much. And to our listeners, if we could just remind them of the activities in the various islands in St. Kitts and Nevis. We start off with a church service at the St. George's Anglican Church. That's at 8 a.m., followed by the Defense Force Band and Guard of Honor, where they will lead a march to the Charles Amory Building in Fort Lands. And then for the special sitting broadcast live from Grenada. In the BVI, the church service will be held at the Apostolic Faith Church in Road Town, and that commences at 8 a.m. And that will be followed by the special sitting, the broadcast of the special sitting at the Sackell Building on the 4th floor. And of course, our host country would be the Spice Isle of Grenada, and the church service there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and that will be at the Blessed Sacrament Catholic Church, where we will then process to the Crown Ballroom, the Radisson Grenada Beach Resort. And I am looking forward to seeing both of you gentlemen. I wish you safe travels. I thank you once again immensely for accepting Her Ladyship's invitation to join us in Grenada. And I just want to urge our listeners to please come out, join us. If you can't join at the church service, then you can view online. You can go to the court's website at www.eccourts.org. And from there, you'll get the link to the court's YouTube page, as well as our Facebook page, YouTube channel rather, as well as our Facebook page, where you can view the sitting, or you can view it via your local GIS station. So there's really no excuse for you not to join us and be a part of the opening of the Law Year 2024. We thank you so much for joining us. This will be our final edition of our Meet the Speakers Live for 2024. I am your host, Michelle John Thibbles, Chief Registrar. Have a good evening. The Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court presents the opening of the Law Year 2024. Join us for the live edition of Meet the Speakers, where you come face to face with the speakers from the member states and territories of the OECS, featured in the opening of the Law Year 2024. Senator the Honorable Claudette Joseph, representative of the Attorneys General and Grenada. Senator the Honorable Garth Wilkin, representative of Ministers of Justice and Legal Affairs and St. Kitts and Nevis. Magistrate Veronica Thomas, and representative of Antigua and Barbuda. Ms. Sajilla McDowell, representative of the Directors of Public Prosecutions and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Mr. Thomas Astafan, King's Counsel, representative of the Territory of Anguilla. Ms. Jean Dyer, President of the OECS Bar Association. Mrs. Diana Thomas Hunt, representative of St. Lucia. Mr. Paul Francis, representative of Grenada. Miss Marcel Watts, representative of the Territory of Montserrat. Mr. Peter Ferrer, representative of the British Virgin Islands. And Mr. Lennox Lawrence, representative of the Commonwealth of Dominica. With your host, Michelle John Thibbles, Chief Registrar.